and provide the defense for not just the men in the film, but the president of the United States, who is customarily guarded by a group of Secret Service men who are hulking, big masculine agents, and she's not dainty, but she's not a big girl, and so to watch her defeat the threats is a wonderful change of pace for us. She comes from a dynamic background on Arrow, where she has been kicking ass for years. She can do the stunts with the best of them. She did have a stunt performer to help with some of the big falls and whatnot, but otherwise she learned all of the moves. She did all the fights herself. 10, 12 hours a day. She was getting her butt kicked and, beaten up and scratched and cut and whatnot. So she's really the backbone of everything. And then on top of that, she's a tremendous actress. So we got to have scenes that were caring and sensitive in between gun battles. So it was, I was somewhat of a passenger, but literally and figuratively within the film. But it was a lovely position to be in, to be opposite her as well as the rest of the cast there.
Yeah, and you mentioned playing those sort of roles, and I suppose there's an awful lot of dedication that goes into a sort of, dare I say, a kick-ass role that is heavily stunt orientated in terms of the demands, in terms of being able to do that. Because obviously the producers, directors, you might have a stunt double, but they probably want, because of the shots and the angles, if they can get you in most of the scenes, obviously it saves an awful lot of money. It leads to the originality and the sort of feel for the movie as well, if they can get the actress doing the main sort of stunt. So we often hear about actors like Alan Richardson training for 3 or 4 months for the Reacher series. We hear of Keanu Reeves training long time before he did the John Wick sort of series. I imagine for Katherine it's probably something the same. She didn't just turn up on the set the first day in terms and say, right, let's roll, what do I have to do? I imagine that she, once she found out she was going to be involved in it, I say she put herself through a heavily training regiment as well to get herself equipped for this.
Yes, so she had a huge background foundation, which is necessary. You have to be a dancer first, and then once you're a dancer, they know that they can teach you all of the steps of pretty much any new dance. And we often refer to stunt play as a dance. It's a series of movements. It's a choreography where you have to learn the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you don't have the foundation, it takes too long. It can take months. Once you have the foundation, then you have to learn the sequences. So she was there days where I was off from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, learning those sequences day after day after day. And it does get mundane, and it gets, it wears on you, becomes physically exhausted and mentally exhausted because you kind of check out. But that's where when you focus and you grind, you get to a precision that makes all the difference on the day when you have a short amount of time to shoot these huge scenes. So you don't have time to do it again and again and again. You have to just cut right through it in the beginning. So all the work that she's put in for her career has gotten her to a knife's edge, and then she was just honed right at the last minute with no small help from James Bamford, the director, who is a former MMA fighter. He was a stunt choreographer. He's directed hundreds of episodes of television in the CW world with many, many fight sequences. So you combine all of those factors together, and then you've got all of the ingredients for the perfect cup of soup. I didn't have to do nearly as much, so it was a much easier schedule for me. I also have that background. I started quite young with Young Hercules when I learned how to do stage fighting and stage combat, and learned those sequences when I was younger and got my foundation, which has helped me in all of my career, because they always ask you, do you have any experience in this? Because they want to know how much they have to spend with you off of set. But if you're caught up enough, they can trust you that you can do what needs to be done pretty much right away and make changes. So we had the perfect storm.
And I suppose, Ian, there's so many different types of presidents, and I suppose many people will look at the classical US presidents from Ford to Carter to Nixon to Reagan. Then many people probably don't do the current few representations of presidents we had in the last.
Not lately.
In terms of how they want to to portray him in the sort of screen. But many people use someone like, they might use an element of JFK, or use an element of Nixon, or an element of Jimmy Carter or Ford or Reagan or someone like that, when they try and portray a fictional character of a well, not a fictional character, but portraying a fictional president character. Was there anything you sort of leaned off, or did you go totally, did you look at maybe US presidents in the past in terms of how you would sort of give yourself a feel to a sort of a president, or how you wanted your sort of carnation, or your anticipation of a president on screen to look like? Or did you look at more what actors had done in the past in terms of their roles as presidents, or just said, listen, I'm going to bring my own feel to it?
Because of the nature of the character, the first thing that I did was look at his fictional policy as it was laid out in the script, based on what he said, what he did, his actions, and how he ostensibly felt about what he was doing. So that was a big foundation first. And I didn't want to match that to anything in the past because it was sort of irrelevant. And then I flavored that with, well, what's he like as a man? And one of the big components for him was an underlying sort of smoldering anger and resentment at life because he had lost his wife. Mm. And that changed the way I said a lot of the words, and I presented a lot of the words, even though it wasn't about necessarily, listen, it's very specifically plot and policy driven when he's talking about, we make these concessions in the Middle East because we want to have this, and that will affect these global dynamics and all, and we all get that stuff. But what he's really talking about is something different. So I mixed those two together with that sorrow of his loss. And then lastly, when you're ready, you look in the mirror before you go on, and you see what you look like. You see what your suit, how your suit's tailored. You see what your hair looks like, how you're shaved, what your face looks like that day, and you try to see a person that's not you. And you look. If you look and this is a great exercise for anybody. Look in the mirror for 5 minutes and don't say anything. You will start to see something. The same thing as if you pick some random word and just repeat it 100 times, it will start to sound like foreign language, and you'll be like, what the hell's going on? So what you see at the end becomes a stranger, but you know them. And then the work that you've done before fills that person in. And then when you turn around and the mirror is gone, it sounds nuts. Then you are that guy, but you're looking outwards. And then you say the words that you remember, and that's just kind of how it happens. So that is, I do that for everyone. It happens to be a president. Of course, then you walk a little different. You turn, the way that you turn and you move, and the way you present to people, and how you listen, and your body language is very obviously commanding and authoritative. And then you put those pieces together, and then I would say that's my president. Okay. So that's how I did it.
So, wow, we've got an insight to the tricks of the trade in terms of how the business sort of works.
If you can call it that, I'm sure there's some actors watching going, yeah, that guy's full of crap. I wouldn't do it like that. But that's what I did on this one. And then once the roller coaster clicks up to the top, and then it's going, then it's on gravity at that point. So all of the work has been done. Then you have to ride the ride. Can't make too many big adjustments at that point because it's now kinetic, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it sure does. I suppose, Ian, one thing that caught my mind, and when I was doing my research, and I said I have to bring it up, was it just mainly one or two bits of the movie? Was it here, or did you spend an extensive time here in Ichaman Airport in Bulgaria? Did you spend a good lot of time in Bulgaria? Was there any scenes filmed in Bulgaria?
The entire film, front to back, was shot in Bulgaria.
In Bulgaria?
Every frame.
In that airport in particular, was it? In that airport, from what I see?
No, I think that was an exterior shot, and that might have even been a green screen where they laid that in. We used the new Boyana Studios in Sofia, and they have an extensive back lot. And the airport where Air Force One, took off from in the beginning, I think that was all computer digitized in the back. But we used a small airfield in the back half of the movie. I don't want to give any spoilers for those that haven't seen it yet, but that are going to. At the end, there's another airport scene, and we actually drove out into the middle of nowhere to a small airfield, and we did use that, but it was all contained right there within the capital, or a few hours drive away.
And tell me, what was that conversation with your talent agent like, saying, Ian, we need you to go and spend 3 weeks in Bulgaria and Sofia? Did you have to look at the map? Did you have to look at the globe and think to yourself, right, Bulgaria, where are we going here? And in terms of what are the, I suppose, what are the itinerary, dare I say, in terms of that? Was it a quick start of production? I can't imagine spending 8 weeks in Bulgaria or 9 weeks in Bulgaria. I imagine was it a quick enough turnaround?
Well, to begin with, I was fairly certain that I could, if you gave me a blank map of Eastern Europe, I would say within 3 guesses I could have picked the outline of that country. I knew it was very close to Ukraine and Romania. So I was like, okay, interesting part of the world, especially right now. Could be a little dangerous. I'm in. I love traveling. I love exotic places. So anytime someone says we're going to go somewhere far away, I'm immediately much more intrigued than if it was a local production. The turnaround from the inception of when they're like, hey, we think we want you to do this, till you've got an airplane ticket to go, was maybe 3 weeks. It was very quick.
Mhm.
Once we got there, I think we started shooting within a week, and I think we had 23 or 24 days of photography. So that's like five weeks is all. And then maybe they had a couple extra without me. So I think 6 weeks tops
Right.
was when we were in country. You work every day, you work long days, and you get a lot done. So there was no downtime. You finish, you go home, you have a little bit to eat, you go to sleep, you get up. Maybe you can go to the gym for 20, 30 minutes, but then you go right back at it. So it's full speed for, we'll call it 2 months from front to back, where your mind is fully focused on what you're going to go do till you arrive. You do it until you get home. So that's how compressed it is.
I suppose when you're working on a project like that and you're, say, a million miles away from home, the people you work with, the crew, and sometimes, I mean, you're foreign countries, there's more of a bond develops in that because you're a family, because you start to rely on yourself for the 6 months, because 6 weeks, because your own family, dare I say, is back home and you can Zoom or you can Skype them or whatever, but it doesn't have the same feel. So the cast and the team that you're working with, you probably develop a greater bond when you're shooting a foreign movie overseas with all the different crew than you would maybe if you're on Hollywood Boulevard or Los Angeles studios productions. Is it more to say that sometimes these foreign productions, that they bring a cast even closer together?
They do, very much so, and even more so, I would say, the crew. Cast can come and go on certain days. You're not always together, but when you go to work, the first person that you see is part of the AD crew, the assistant directors, and there's 3 or 4 of them, and they greet you and they take care of you and they walk you around from place to place, and they're always with you, making looking after you, making sure you have everything that you need. And they become, we're very social creatures, these silly actors, and we need to interact and be connected with people, and everyone has very specific jobs to do, and they're very, very busy, and they don't particularly care about actors when they're not on set delivering their lines, working. So when we're not doing that, we're somewhat standing around like, what what's happening? And I don't, no one's here, no one's talking to, I don't have any friends, I don't know what to do with myself. So you walk around town and you don't speak the language, so you feel very isolated. But when you get to the studios, again, one of the ads will grab you and say, hey, good morning, how you doing? And you're like, this is it, this is my family. And you start to have an incredible bond, and those are the people that you miss the most, because they care about you, and you start to care about them, and you become friends very quickly and very intensely. And then after 2 months you leave, and I haven't seen anyone that was there at those studios since. And it's heartbreaking in that sense. I talked to Katherine, quite a bit, and we message and catch up and look at pictures and whatnot, and James, our director, and some of the other actors. But the crew, especially because of it's so remote, unless you go back to those stages to shoot another film, you're unlikely to ever encounter them again. So it's this social romance that's beautiful and tragically heartbreaking at the end.
Yeah, it's almost like a Romeo and Juliet sort of a
It
story
is.
in terms of that sort of dynamic. And I suppose in terms of the movie itself, we're starting to see there's an energy sort of fuel crisis. It's political motivated, the agendas across. But in terms of some of the bad guys as well, there's always to make a good movie, there has to be some real good, strong bad guys. And Rade Serbedzija, a renowned sort of European actor, he really sort of comes into his own, and we get to see some of these Italian and Eastern European actors really when a project comes this
Hmm.
way start to shine in a role that you mightn't get to see them on your TV stations and cable TV stations across the United States where you have shows that are hit maybe shot on different lots in California. But these we get to see the wonderful talents on these movies of say really renowned European actors that might do most of their work in Europe. And Rade is definitely one that fits that bill.
Rade is, I recognized him immediately from one of the Mission Impossibles, one of the earlier ones with the Chimera virus, and his voice. I had heard him on set, and I was looking around, going, "Where's who is speaking?" And I saw him, and then I watched him talk, and I thought, "Oh my God, that's Rade." And I thought that performance in that film was phenomenal. And what he brings is a man. My favorite part of villains, or what we call bad guys, that do bad things, but that are somehow sympathetic at the same time. And you can see the humanity of them. They're not just barbarians that we see on TV in these faraway nations that are truly animals. We have to picture them as sympathetic creatures that believe in what they're doing. And he can do it in a way that's so captivating and that you want to watch him, and you find yourself almost not rooting for him, but you're kind of like, well, I get where he's coming from. And you just give him that little bit of rope, and that's what's compelling, and that's what makes you want to watch and continue. So to have, to play opposite him for so many of those powerful scenes, and to listen to him speak, and to hopefully captivate him from time to time with my performance was an absolute treat. He's Croatian, by the way, and he's just a marvelously interesting person when he's even not working. Just the way he walks and holds things, and what he wears. He's a classic gentleman, and he's fascinating. So I would love the opportunity to work with him again.
Yeah, I suppose Ian, before we came on air, you mentioned a message that you wanted to get across to some of your fans that might know you from another popular TV series at the moment. You have words of encouragement, words of hope, and words of good news to bring them today.
Yes, thank you to all of the fans of Yellowstone around the world. I want to thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long wait between seasons 5A and the conclusion of the series 5B. We had a couple of very distracting strikes in Hollywood all of last year that prevented us from working. And now we've got snowfall that we have to shoot around. So we will be continuing the final sequence of the show, and it will be on air later this year. So I want to thank you for not losing hope, and tell you and promise you that it will be worth the wait. Yellowstone is going to be back strong. So thank you for not losing faith in us.
And I suppose for the Irish people, we're going to get to see Ian Bohen on our shores in 2024. He's making a special appearance. We won't say where, but he's coming to Ireland, and you're looking forward to that, Ian. And I believe you've been here in the past as well.
I have been before in the past, and I've absolutely loved it. There's rumors that there is a Bowen Lake in our family in the north. I've yet to determine the coordinates, but if anybody has any information about that, please let me know. My father and I have been planning a trip since last August to come next August to play golf at some of the most renowned and historic Royal and Ancient courses in the world. So if anybody is around August poking around those places, I'll be happy to take pictures with you, and we can tee it up on the links.
Okay, and no doubt there's going to be many people from the DC universe sneaking around, some loyal sort of fan bases, creeping and stalking out Ian Bohen's social media accounts over the next few months or so with that sort of news. So, dare I say, we're delighted to have you coming to Ireland in the near future. And Ian, before I let you go now, I'm going to turn it over to you for the final 30 seconds. You might enlighten all our audience, all our fan base, why they should go out to the theaters in mass, why they should watch Air Force One down, where they roll up in their plane, train, automobile, what is it, donkey, horse and carter, who knows, even a tractor, arrive at the cinema screens, head down to the cinema, find that recliner, stretch it out, have their popcorn, their Pepsi, the Maltesers, kick back the shoes, relax, lay down, and watch Air Force One down. And Ian Bohen, what's in store for them?
Well, here's the thing. Don't forget that films like this are meant to be viewed as a community. They're not to be watched isolated alone. So you're supposed to have the reaction and the group feel, and it's something that has been bringing people together for nearly 100 years now. So grab your buddies, get ready for some thrills, suspend your disbelief, enjoy the imagination and the creativity that people have brought together to this story, and let yourself just be sunk in to it with your friends. Like you said, enjoy some popcorn and some sweets and some soda. Root for the good guys. Cheer when they win. Be happy when the evil bad guys are vanquished, and know that we have a very classic story with a very good ending. But you're going to want to see all of the arcs and the hills and the valleys along the way. So we would appreciate you going down and supporting us with all of your friends together and seeing Air Force One down as soon as you can.